Hi guys, Elle here. I just came back inside from trying to watch the solar eclipse today. It just happened, but I couldn't really see anything, and I think I might have burned out my retinas. I still see sunspots everywhere. Unfortunately, you couldn't really see it here, but, you know, it happened. And I know it happened, and it was pretty cool. So anyway, I thought I'd jump back into some videos today, and I thought I'd start with something I have been meaning to make videos about for a little while now, and that is about other types of decks, specifically fortune-telling decks. That's what this is going to be, like a show and tell of all of my fortune-telling style oracle decks. I thought that'd be a good way to sort of kick things off, just to show you guys what I have in my collection, give you a little sampling of all these amazing, amazing decks. A lot of these I have neglected to show you guys in other videos. Some of them I've had a really long time, and some of them are new, and they're all really special and amazing. I'll try and give you guys a little sort of history of this kind of stuff as we go through. I'm a little unorganized today. Usually I'm like super organized when I make a video, and this one we're just gonna sort of go about a bit haphazardly. So I don't even know where to start. I don't even know how many decks I have here. But anyway, this is sort of how I store them. I keep all my little fortune-telling decks, and I'll explain what I mean actually by these specific types of fortune-telling decks. That's just what I call them, I guess. I don't know. We throw around all these words in like the tarot community and the cartomancy community, right? And depending on who you talk to and the context of your discussion, right? These words can mean so many different things at different times. You know, oracle decks, fortune-telling decks, Lenormand decks, Sibylle decks. But it's all that kind of stuff. This is not, you know, those kind of oracle decks where it's oh Jesus, how do you even describe them? Like my art through the star stream, you know, oracle decks like that. Most of these decks, fortune-telling decks, what I term that, it was mostly based on historic decks. Not all of them are historic, but a lot of them are just based on these historic decks from like the 18th and 19th century mostly. And they're all more or less based on playing cards. Some of them are shortened decks, like Lenormand, a 36 card deck. Or you have your 32 card PK decks, like I said, and I have a whole lot of 52 card decks. Which is my personal favorite, I guess you could say. Anyway, but this is how I store them. This is one box. When I give you guys my altar tour in a minute, you'll see where I keep them, if that is of any interest to you. This is my journal for fortune-telling decks. I think I showed you guys this briefly when I talked about tarot journals. I'm not sure how into it we'll get today, but I wanted to have it handy here. I have a few pages for each of the 52 cards, and we'll probably end up looking at some of the stuff I have back here actually a little bit, because this was one of the best things I ever did for my own comparative study, if you will. I have these two charts here, and this is for basically the keywords or the titles really of, like, this is for Lenormand. I have my 32 and 36 cards here. And it goes from the ace, and then you have your 6 through the king here for each suit. And so I could compare like the titles of each card. I have the Petit listed here. I have a Kipper cards listed here, even though they don't have an exact playing card association. This was just my own messing around with. But the Gypsy Witch, the standard Petit Lenormand, your Petit Etteilla, like I said, your Destin Antique that I will show you guys. What else? And then this one goes through like for 52 card decks. I included the Grand Etteilla here as my one tarot keyword source to compare. But I have the Vera Sibilla, and then your French Sibylle, what do you call it? Your Parlour Sibyl, or Sibylle Indovina. Just a bunch of other decks here too, the Granjo, all that kind of stuff. You know, studying the cards this way and looking more at their playing card association is really what is so much fun for me. That's what I love about this kind of stuff. I think that, I said it before, but like, I think that these kind of decks are are just an expression of the same themes and the same subjects and the same ideas that you find in the minor arcana of all our tarot decks. It's the minor arcana here. And I think that these decks are so, I mean, you can read with them for any type of reading. Just like you use the tarot for any type of reading, from big ideas and motivations and things like that, all the way down to very practical fortune-telling-y types of readings. But I think that these types of decks, especially because they're lacking that fifth suit, that suit of spirit, they're lacking the big archetypes, are just, they're wonderfully crystallized down into very practical, day-to-day sort of advice and things and ideas. And then that's more the type of readings that I tend to do with these types of decks. And that's what they're made for. Most of these decks were designed with divination in mind. Some of them are for games also, but even those decks, you know, they tend to have this side of them, even in their little white books back when they were first made. You can play a game, and here's how you use them for divination. So they're just designed for that, and it's so cool. And I think that what I was trying to do with this avenue of studying these fortune-telling cards, was trying to look and see if this idea that I had was correct, you know, to prove it one way or the other. And that idea being that it's the same thing you find in your minor arcana in the tarot, just perhaps in a more, I like that word, crystallized, practical sort of an expression. You know, just expressing that same energy that you find in each of those tarot cards in a different way. If it's really sort of, in a way, getting at the same thing, and whether that was true or not. And I found it to be incredibly true. But I know that when I first started getting into it and seeing what other people had to say about these cards and the comparison to tarot specifically and especially, that they would say a lot of things like, you know, take that tarot knowledge and throw it out the window. This is completely different. This is a different system. This is different imagery, and all that may still be true, but I can't say that it just hurt having a knowledge of tarot. What our knowledge of tarot, I think, boils down to is an understanding of what? Of number and suit, you know, the minor arcana and the entirety of the tarot, right? It's like this journey, or this cyclical journey, you could say, right? Through the elements, basically, more or less. And it all boils down to number and suit, and finding these same ideas and energies expressed in all these decks, including our Lenormand decks. That one I wasn't really sure about. I love reading Lenormand. I think it's such a simplistic, in a good way, simplistic, symbolic deck. It's really, really fun to read with. But yeah, you know, you find lots of Lenormand decks, right, where it's, oh my god, I'm so babbling on, but you find lots of Lenormand decks where you don't even have your playing card association, like it's unimportant. So I remember when I first started trying to make those comparisons from Lenormand to tarot, if it was just in vain, because there wasn't such an emphasis placed on the relationship to its source, as I look at it. But I found that to not be true. I think that they are placed at each playing card for a very specific reason, and it's just, that's how it expresses itself, and it's beautiful. Okay, anyway, that was the journal, which we'll probably be going in and out of, and this is just the other box that I happen to keep my cards in. Fortune-telling cards really do tend to be smaller, don't they? They're more like playing card size, smaller than tarot decks for the most part, and I like that. I think they're cute. They're freaking adorable. But that's my like ancient Egyptian box. How cool is that? All right, there we go. Oh my god, look at all these beauties. So fun. This is kind of my Sibyllas over here, and I don't know, everything else is over here, Lenormands, and the like. And I actually have a couple playing card decks sort of thrown in here, so we won't spend too much time on those guys. But anyway, I do want to jump in with my favorite, with my Sibylles over here. Real quick, before I do that, let's just talk about what a Sibylla is. So in general, I guess you could say it's sort of an umbrella term, but in general, they tend to be 52 card decks. It certainly doesn't have to be called a Sibylla, but most of what you'll find out there now when something is being called a Sibylla is a 52 card deck. And in my opinion, regardless of what sort of region that the deck has come from, it isn't that they have to all have the same exact imagery and titles for each card, because they don't. Beware, they don't. Really, it's just that they're all related and that they do have the same titles and the same imagery that you'll see repeated over and over again, just like how you would recognize a Lenormand deck by the fact that you see things like the clover and it looks like the clover card, the clover, the rider, the bear, the snake, you know, all these things. You'll see the same thing in your Sibylle decks. You'll have things like the child, the maid, prison, haughtiness, happiness, jealousy, the enemy, gifts of precious stones, a gift of precious stones. I love that one. Malady or sickness, you know, the same things, and they tend to have the same, in general, the same imagery associated with that card title. But that's where it gets a little weird, because, you know, you'd recognize a Lenormand deck because it has 36 cards and they're numbered this specific way. It's a very specific type of deck. Whereas Sibylla is a bit more of an umbrella term because the decks have so much variation underneath that term. Now, these cards are not, let's start here, these cards are not numbered like you might find in Lenormand. I'm going to keep referencing like Lenormand because I know it's a very popular type of fortune-telling deck. I think a lot of us are really familiar with it. This is my Vera Sibilla deck. And I want to pull this one out first because this tends to be classically what people think of when they think of a Sibylla deck. Vera Sibylla, what does it mean? The true Sibylla. And this falls under, I would basically split Sibyllas up into like two categories, more or less. This might not be totally PC, but this is sort of how I think of it. There's Italian Sibyllas, and there's what I like to term French-style Sibyllas, or French-influenced Sibylla decks. But this is definitely an Italian Sibylla, and it is kind of what a lot of like modern Sibylla decks are based on also, and I'll show you that when we get to it. Let me show you guys what I mean here. There is your Ace of Clubs. This is Imeneo, but it's wedding, marriage. You can see the image there. You have, this deck is completely in Italian. It looks like this in the box, by the way. It's a Masenghini deck, La Vera Sibilla. Boop, boop, there it is. Made in Italy, made in Italy, and everything is in Italian. Once you're familiar with the names of the cards, though, it isn't an issue. You get familiar with it really quickly. I don't need to know what the keywords are. You know, I know the image. I know, like, you know what they are, I guess. But, like, yeah. Anyway. Two of Clubs. And if something is going to call itself a Vera Sibilla, it's going to be this, like, these exact same images, basically. Il Metagello makes a deck like this. I think theirs is, like, from 1890. And the oldest deck that is this deck, or the style of deck, like a Vera Sibilla, is from, I think, around that time. Amica, your friend, Fortuna. And now what you'll find on some of the other Sibylle decks that I'm going to show you in a minute is like this exact image, and the name Fortuna will be on the Seven of Clubs. Now, I have to say personally that the way the designation and the way that this deck is laid out and assigned to playing cards works really well. It's done intentionally, and it all makes sense. I really do like when decks have a playing card association. By moving this image, this great consolation, as this card is called, to a different playing card, it's going to completely change the meaning. If you know, it's the Seven of Clubs, and that completely colors how you interpret it. For me, anyway. Your reunion. Nine of Clubs, Allegria. Your happiness. I did try and put all these cards in order, but let me jump around a little bit. I'm going to show you guys the entire deck. Donna Maritata. I actually really like to say that one. It's your married woman, your merchant. You'll see these same cards appearing throughout the other Sibilla decks. Very similar, or the same names with very similar imagery. And there's your Two of Spades, your Vecchia Signora. Oh, I say it wrong probably. But she's your widow. And here's your widower. At the Three of Spades. Ammalato. Malady, sickness. And death. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. This particular one, I think, was first published in like 1977. But if I didn't say it before, it is very similar to the oldest Vera Sibylla, the oldest Sibylla deck. Nothing's called the Vera Sibylla unless it is like this specific deck, basically. I don't think that the original one from back then actually had lottery numbers on it, but you do find lotto numbers on most of these decks also. Okay, the next two decks I'm going to show you guys very briefly, because I definitely showed them a little bit in my like tarot deck collection video from way back when. They were fairly new to me at that time. These were the first Sibylla decks that I ever bought. They're both Lo Scarabeo decks, and they're super easy to find and super cheap. And I love both these decks. They both follow that same Vera Sibylla outline. This one does too, even though it's different art, but it's basically the same exact deck with all pretty much the same imagery. This is actually, there's the English, Gypsy Oracle cards, or the Sibylle Zingara, Sibylle Della Zingara, and this one is the Vera Sibylla, or the Everyday Oracle. So the Everyday Oracle is very, very, that's it, right? Yes, very similar to the Vera Sibylla that I just showed you guys. See that? It's like the same thing. I love these two decks with their black borders. I just think it looks so pretty. Oh, does that look familiar? These have a lot of numbers on it also. Journey, Friends, Fortuna at the Five of Fury or Clubs. That's how the playing card association is made here with this deck. I have the number up here, and like the first letter of the suit name in Italian. Your surprise, your great consolation, your reunion, your happiness, your cheerfulness, your servant, and so on and so forth. Doctor. There's again is your widow and your widower, and your malady, your sickness, your death. Sighs. Oh, I just love this card. This is always one of my favorite cards, Sighs. And at the Six of Spades, it's so appropriate, that longing. I definitely want to talk about card meanings. This is your tragedy, always something burning. Jealousy. I definitely want to talk about, card meanings and how I think these cards relate perfectly with tarot, and it's just sort of expressing the energy of that same card. In this case, it's your Nine of Spades. This was the prison card in the Sibylla, or the Vera Sibylla type decks, you could say. That it's expressing a specific, more crystallized, you could say maybe, energy of the nine. It's all related. It's all number and suit. I love these two cards. The female enemy and the male enemy. And Not a beautiful deck. So that's that guy. That is this one, the Everyday Oracle. And next up is this guy. This is the Sibilla Della Zingara. Or the, what else is it called? The Gypsy Oracle cards. But basically, isn't the back's beautiful? It's another one with the black borders. Basically, it is the same thing. This one doesn't have... Oh, I didn't put this one in order. Nope, and there's upside down cards. Alright, sorry guys, I missed one. But basically, I showed this in my other video too. I wrote the playing card correspondence on here because as I was learning, it was throwing me off like crazy. But here's your Speranza card, your Hope card. Look at me saying shit in Italian. That probably sounds... Probably pronouncing it wrong. But here's your Surprise, like we saw before. He's fishing something out. Your 6 of clubs. Here's your, oh no, your 6 of spades. There's my Size card, your Longing. Sospiri. Size. But see what I mean? It's the same titles at the same, and the same playing card association. Sometimes the words are a little bit different, and the imagery can be a little bit different, but really this follows suit with Vera Sibilla. Old woman. All of these are sort of meant to be, or can be read with reversals, and I do that with basically every single kind of deck, even if they say you shouldn't do it. Life is short, man. Read with reversals. That's what I always say. No, I just like it, so I do it. These are so out of order. This, I have numbered 13 of hearts because this is your, this is your king. 11, 11 obviously would be your jack, 12 your queen, and 13 your king. This is the Grand Seigneur or your lord. Here's your happiness at the, I kept calling the butterfly card not happiness. I kept calling it cheerfulness, didn't I? It's carefreeness, excuse me. The butterfly is usually carefreeness. I think it's frivolity in this deck, but it's still a butterfly. Anyway, here's your cheerfulness. Say it right. Melancholy, the 5 of diamonds. Oh, here's a good one. This is another one. You always see a dog on the fidelity or faithfulness card, and you always see a cat on the falseness card. Pleasure seekers at the 9 of diamonds here, also sometimes called the lunatics card. It's kind of a cool name. And the scholar at the 7 of hearts here, the baby or the child at the 7 of diamonds. And there's that tragedy or misfortune, the 7 of spades. I might accidentally say like tarot suits on accident. If I say wands or cups, you know what I mean. Your 6 of diamonds or discs or whatever, because really it's all the same thing. Look how beautiful is that thought lives there. It all just works. It makes sense. This is your ace of clubs, like I showed before, that wedding or marriage card. And here it's wedding, even though you don't have that. What was it, like hands or rings in the fire above the flame? It's referencing like a god. Those cards, but this one is very, very similar. And perfect for the ace of wands. See, there it is. Ace of clubs. 2 of clubs. A haughtiness. Or vanity, you could say. Superbia. Okay, that's enough of a sampling of that guy. I still love both of those decks. I think they are beautiful. Okay, the next 2 decks I'm going to show you guys are these guys, and these both also still follow that what has become known as, even I hear people call it like the regular Sibilla even. And these follow suit. They follow along the same ordering, the same naming, mostly the same kind of imagery for each specific card that you find in the Vera Sibilla and the last 2 decks I showed you. Now these are both modern Sibilla decks. This is, are they both Del Negro? Yeah, they're both from Del Negro. These can both be a little bit harder to find. I know Tarot BG, I think, sells them, and I think I ordered, that one came from Tarot BG, but I think I got this one from the, what's that big tarot website, Alida. I'll put links to both those sites down below. But they are modern decks, they're modern interpretations, and they are both really, really stunning. Let me show you guys this one first. It is the Mistiri Della Sibilla. It doesn't have English on there anywhere. It's all, both of these decks are like all in Italian, and I think everything in the Little White Books too, if it even came with one. This one, I don't remember, is all in Italian. So that stuff is not very helpful. There really is only like one, I think, book published out there about even reading with Sibilla. This stuff is really, really hard to find in English. It's insanely popular in Italy, though, Sibilla decks. You know, I've heard people say all the time that you can just scoop up a Sibilla deck, like at the local grocery counter. You know, like they're everywhere there. But you guys got to see this deck. It's friggin' beautiful. The artwork is just so good. And you guys know how much I love the other one. I'm about to show you too, that Luigi Scapini, the magic Sibylle, what's it called? Yeah, La Magica Sibylle. Anyway, this is not that one. This is the Mistiri Della Sibylle. Let's keep them straight. Both of them actually are a little bit more standard tarot size. They're much bigger than, I think, any of my other Sibylle cards. But the backs are gorgeous. They do have a border around it. Oh, there's more of the backs. That's because this was... They're in order. So good. My like Lord and Lady cards, or woman, man, lady, gentleman, or whatever. Okay, so there they are. They're actually not pure white. Like the backs of the borders are pure white, but the fronts have this lovely softness to them. It's a bit darker than like an eggshell white. I'm not sure how that's coming across on camera, but. It's maybe it almost looks even like a pale pink or a light beige. I don't fucking know. Whatever. This is how you get your playing card association down here, your keywords, and your card title sponsali, which I think basically is husband and wife, man and wife, spouses, marriage, wedding, same thing. You'll find that a lot in both of these modern decks, whereas some of the keywords might be a little different, some of the names, some of the imagery might be a little bit different, but you can clearly see that is following the exact same ordering of the Vera Sibilla. Aren't they gorgeous? Look at this artwork. It's not something I would normally gravitate towards either, this style of artwork, but something about the way the card looks on a whole, and the sweetness, and I guess the fact too that there's not a lot of modern Sibyllas out there, that this is just so, it's such a treasure. I have no idea when this came out, actually. I'll double check for you guys. Here's your Fortuna at the 5 of Clubs. Fortune. What was I going to say? Oh, that's right. Just so as you guys know, why don't I go there right now, actually. Here we go. This guy, your 3 of diamonds, and this guy. Oh, it's not called Gift of Precious Stones here. It's Regali. I don't know. Does that mean gift? But anyway, that one and Donna di Servizio, or your maid, your housemaid card, sometimes are swapped, even in this Vera Sibilla kind of category where things all follow the same suit. You'll find that from deck to deck. The 8 of diamonds could very easily be the maid card, and vice versa. In this deck, it happens to be here, which is, I honestly don't care either way. It works. I understand them in both sort of slots, I guess you could say. Here's that cat card, the falseness. Falsita. And what you're about to see when we get to the other Sibylla decks is that, you know, this card, your melancholy card, and some of the other decks will not be your 5 of diamonds, like, but it'll have a different playing card association, or not even be there at all. Is there melancholy in the French? Oh, I don't remember. Here's your thought card at the 6 of diamonds. Isn't that beautiful? I love this card. Try and skip around and show you guys some more stuff. I feel like I keep going to the same cards. Oh yeah, we're back to the beginning. Here we go. Here's your, like, your Cupid card, your love card. Your Four of Hearts in this deck. And in all the decks I've shown you, all these Vera Sibilla types. It can be very confusing because it doesn't say what it is, you know, when you go to buy it. You have to sort of, what I had to do to figure out what this was try and find reviews, but they're few and far between. But just look at images of the card and see what the playing card association was to see if it actually fit this this type of deck. Your money card, your artist, your hope speranza. Isn't this a lovely modern take on it? It's so gorgeous. Love this deck. And real quick, I know I showed you guys this deck a little bit already in my Tarot BG haul video, I think. But holy shit, I was lusting after this deck for a really long time. And it is fantastic to read with. This one also has two fun little cards. Your Lord and Lady, man and woman. This one is also called Sponsali, your spouses, man and wife. Superbia, instead of being a, what is it, like a peacock usually, right? It's this haughty looking vain woman, which works. There's your travel. Oh, aren't they beautiful? This has very similar to the last deck I showed you, actually, right, with the titled keywords and the playing card correspondence at the bottom. But that's the style of artwork in this guy, and it is done by Luigi Scapini, who's done a shit ton of other tarot decks, right, including the medieval Scapini and the Shakespeare or Romeo and Juliet tarot that I recently acquired. It was more of like a Luigi Scapini haul from Tarot VJ. Oh, beautiful. Here's your hope card. Like you saw before, the hope card always has that anchor in it. Speranza. Just everything about this deck is like super classy. There's your dog card. What this dog is doing is like killed a birdie, chasing a birdie, eating a birdie. That's so sad. Here's your child. But it's a very elegant deck. There's something that makes me feel so like sophisticated and classy when I read with this deck. And the scaled back imagery, the simplicity of it, I think is also a nice change. You know, some of the older decks that I showed you guys before, they're small cards and they're a little busy, and the bigness of these cards, you know, and the, I don't know, it's simple and it's very easy on the eyes. Even though there's a lot of detail here in his artwork, they're still wonderfully simple. Isn't that great? Oh, here's those two that I love too, the male enemy and the female enemy, your queen of spades and your jack of spades. You know, it can be really cool to work with Sibilla decks and fortune-telling decks like this, because it's a different way to work with the same old minor arcana that you are already used to, and it can be a great way to learn both systems, I think. Like, I wish I had been studying these cards back when I was first absorbing like tarot meanings, because I think it's really helped me in my tarot reading. And in my understanding of all the different ways that the energy of, say, the Four of Hearts can play out, you know? It's just fun. Okay, moving on a little bit. Let's actually jump over to, so you can really see the difference. When people talk about, like a French Sibilla, this is kind of what they're talking about. This is your Parlour Sibyl. I think that's how Grimaud released it. I think it's called the Parlour Sibyl. I have, hang on, let me show you the box. I have the Lo Scarabeo version, and it looks like this. Sibilla Oracle cards. Sibilla Indovina. And it's a gorgeous deck. You'll recognize a lot of the titles a bit more so than the imagery, because the imagery looks very different, has definite style and flair to it. I just happen to have this version, and it is a bit smaller, just like the Everyday Oracle and the Sibilla Zingara. The backs, I have to say, are a little bit trippy. I don't hate them, but like, I don't love them. If you stare at it long enough, I see like weird body parts, like penises and things. I'm not sure what that says about me. It's not a Rorschach test, but like, it looks like a chest there. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, are these not in order either? No, I'm a crazy person. Sorry, guys. Anyway, what you will find here is, well, that typical low Scarabeo thing. I think the Grimaud version actually doesn't have it zoomed in on the entire card either. There's a white border around it and titles at the top and the bottom, but I think it's French and English. Anyway, this has all the languages because Lo Scarabeo likes to do that. But I think it does maybe take away a little bit too because the cards are so aged looking on the inside. I'm not sure if we actually even have an exact date for the origins of this deck, but I might be talking out of my ass. Anyway, that was a card that you would recognize, right? That's like one we saw in the Vera Sibylle's more. However, look at where it is located. Here it is at the 6 of clubs. Actually, let me show you guys something real quick. Did I say 6 of... Fuck. Did I say 6 of clubs, by the way? That's the 6 of hearts. If we jump back in my little journal here, where I have my handy-dandy little list. Is this it? Yeah. The first... Oh, okay. I actually didn't make this as easy as I thought it would for you guys. But anyway, if you sort of look over here, the first listing is the Vera Sibylle title, and not the second, but the third is the Sibilla Indovina, or the Parlour Sibyl here that we are just about to go through. So if we go over to where we were, what was that? The 6? No, hearts. 6 of hearts. Here it is love, amour, and here it's actually, that's the money card in the Vera Sibilla. The regular Sibylle, the common Sibylla, we'll call it that. How's that? Oh, if they were right next to each other, you guys could see how very different they are. They really have very few places where they seem to be, even if the name is different, where they seem to be kind of getting at the same idea. And also, I should say, you know, you're not going to even see all the same names and imagery that you're familiar with. That one certainly is. Sincere friend, familiar. But this is the absence card, and we don't have an absence card in the other decks. This one is much money, a lot of money for your clubs. Instead of the wedding, you have money here, which works though too. Really, I mean, it's the start of something. You know, this money comes in, and that's where you start. You know, it's still an ace of clubs. This deck really does still work. It makes sense. Your Ace of Hearts, called the sweet card, referring to, it's also called like sweet ticket, you know, like a card or a message, really, is what this card is getting at. It's communication, and you see that even in the Vera Sibylle, where the card for the Ace of Hearts is conversation. Even in like the Etteilla, where we... Yeah, sometimes I say it's where we get our tarot card meanings from, but I truly believe that, you know, he didn't himself start them. They came from something older, because it's all suit and number. But even the Etteilla meaning for the Ace of Hearts, for his tarot deck, for the Grand Etteilla, is was it party, which is getting at that same idea, you know, of this communication. These messages, this interaction, which is at the heart of the suit of hearts, you know, relationships, and interacting. And love. Okay, I'm done. Here is your displeasure. Let me zoom in on these images a bit so you can see how incredibly... It's hard because these cards are small, but they're really detailed and beautiful. They look like they're engraved maybe, and they're colored in beautifully. There's something very, very French about it, right? It almost looks like, it always reminds me of like Les Miserables or something. It looks like scenes from Les Mis. Chattering, this one is called. chatty cards. That's what Sibilla decks are known as, right? Real chatty cards. And they are. It's very easy to, I think, read with these cards. You have that great visual imagery driven scenes of people doing things, you know? You read very differently with a deck like this than you do with something that, like a Lenormand, that's just a symbol, very simple. But they're both really fun to read with, I think. This is your hope, your speranza. Espera is in French here, espérance, but there's your anchor. And this is at the Three of Clubs here. So this is really what I was talking about. This is your enemy. When I was saying how much variance there can be under this umbrella term of Sibylla decks. Angry Woman is your Queen of Diamonds. And as you can see, the playing card has like an actual playing card insert up here. And there's two house cards in here. Actually, you have a townhouse and or a country house and a city house. It's very interesting to read about this. There's actually a really good website that has translations from I guess the book that comes with it. I'll put that down below. And whatever other good websites I sort of have in my arsenal, I'll list down below for getting to know Sibylles and Lenormands and all this kind of stuff. This is, here's the other house card, your country house. Oh, this deck is numbered too. I think that's why they're in order of their numbering, which is a bit haphazard and all over the place, and I don't really pay attention to that. But I did, as I put them in order of numbering the other day. That's right. Weakness. You can see it jumps all over the seats and things. It does tell an interesting story going through from the 1 to the 52. Here's your thought at the 7 of Hearts here, which actually that works really well also, doesn't it? You know, for me it changes that meaning a little bit, being a 7 and not a 6. Gifts and presents. You know, you really do. You know, you do see a lot of crossover, like I said, between the old Etteilla tarot keywords and things with this deck in particular. I think it's a bit closer to not that the other deck is necessarily wrong or anything, because I really don't think it is. I love the expression of the minor arcana through those decks. But this, it keeps it a bit closer in a lot of ways to those Etteilla meanings. Really interesting. Okay, I am going to stop. Here is your 2 of Diamonds, your pleasure. Beautiful. What I want to show you guys next, then, is a deck that, in my opinion, is a bit closer, follows a bit more closely with this French style. Not exactly. It does not have the same names for all the cards, and it's got to be the most crazy Sibilla deck I've ever come across. It's this deck, by the way. Some of the associations, some of the cards where they are, and their playing card associations, I should say, are strange. But from what I could tell, it's a lot closer to the French Sibylla than it is to this Italian Sibyllas. But that's what the box looks like, and it is the Oracle of the Sibylla, or the Oracolo della Sibylla. And this is, who makes this? Del Negro again. And it's bigger cards like the other Del Negro Sibylla decks, the Magica Sibylla and the Mistiri Della Sibylla. Okay, where is it? Here it is. Here's our Oracle of the Sibylla. It's a gorgeous deck. And this is also by Giorgio Travaglioni, who I also have one of his tarot decks. I think this one comes from the 70s, just like the other decks of his. The Stairs of Gold is the one that I have, and it is one of my favorite tarot decks. I probably wasn't in my top 10, but it's one of my favorite decks for study. And I feel like that's happening with this deck too. It's really interesting to study. He gets me, man. I love that there is a Sibilla deck that has such a great esoteric vibe to it. Like, he gets that there is so much more going on here than just a simple, silly fortune-telling deck that has no depth to it. These decks do. It's all fucking tarot, and it's great. He's got its gnosis on the back, and it combines astrology in a really interesting way, and all sorts of cool stuff. He makes all these just great esoteric connections. This deck definitely requires a whole video to sort of go through. Do I have this in order? Yes. Well, this is my order. I always put my cards in order, from the clubs to the hearts to the spades to the diamonds. It's just how I like to order things. A lot of these decks didn't actually come in that ordering, but that's just me. So, in fact, I think a lot of Sibyllists tend to start with the hearts first, the Ace of Hearts. Anyway, this is money, just like it is in the Sibylle Indovina. Much money in that deck. It's money. And it's all in Italian also, but we have so much other amazing, wonderful information that comes with these cards. He's got a very interesting way of associating the minor arcana cards with their with like a planet and a deck in it. So you have these astrological associations, which are very different from anything I've ever seen. And the way he goes about it actually makes a lot of sense. I'll explain it in a second. But here, this card, your Ace of Clubs, is associated with Mars in the first degree, or the first decanate of Aries. And you have the symbol for fire, and you have all these other numbers up here, which are like those lotto numbers. And then you also have some interesting numerology numbers down here in Roman numerals for each card. It gives you that also. On each card you have the same beautiful like border, and you also have this, which I think is gorgeous, this star with a G in it for gnosis, you know, knowledge. God, you could say too, maybe. Yeah, so here, they're all in order, so they're all going to be your fire over here because they're clubs. I just have the classic associations in this deck where your cups or your hearts are water, your diamonds or your coins or pentacles are earth, and your spades or swords are air. However, in this deck, it doesn't necessarily stay with, you know, like this is Aries, like this does happen to be a fire sign here, but it doesn't stay like that the whole time. Like here's Taurus, you have an earth sign, where, you know, in standard tarot associations, when you're associating those things, you tend to stay within that same elemental realm for your astrological associations. But let me show you, I'll show you a few more cards first. Let's jump around here. Here's some hearts. You have Belvedere, right? That classic Sibylle title with a classic Sibylle image, redrawn, of course. He has this very kind of Roman, Greco-Roman look to most of the artwork here. But Belvedere or Fairview, and this is at now the Four of Hearts. It's in a different place. I think that actually works really well here, the Four of Hearts being Fairview, Belvedere, this idea of anticipation. Yeah, that's good there. It's normally, well, not normally, but in the Vera Sibilla, the Belvedere falls at the Three of Hearts. And in the French Sibilla, the Three of Hearts actually is the female consultant card. Oh, it gets crazy, but it's interesting. Anyway, up here for our associations, we have, oh, I was showing you that wrong before. Anyway, it's here. It's Saturn in the first degree, the first decan of Leo. And Leo is ruled by the sun. That's why you have that image of the sun up there. And then you have your numbers, and because this is a hearts card, you have the elemental or alchemical symbol for water. And there's different things in each one of the cards, each one of the talismans in the cards. You have Hebrew stuff going on and writing and different symbols, and it's all very cool. Here's your Amour card, your Cupid card is at the 6 of hearts here instead of the 4 of hearts. But that is just like how you see again in the Parlour Sibyl, the French Sibilla. Gorgeous. And here you have Mars in, was that the 3rd? Yep, Mars in the 3rd degree of, yeah. So yeah, that should give you an idea of what is going on in this beautiful deck. Just skip around a little bit. Here's your Death card. Death falls at the 9 of Spades. And then at the 10 of Spades is your sadness card. And actually, just so you know, he's done something that I like in tarot decks as well, where the ace actually has a decan associated with it, just like Christine Payne-Tower does in the Tarot of the Holy Light, and the 10 does not. So that's where you don't find a decan associated with the card on all your 10s. Okay, real quickly, take another look at the back. Oh, they're so pretty. They have that sort of linen finish to them too. These cards are not that flat. I just want to show you guys the book that this comes with real quick too, because it is it half English or all English? Yeah, this sucker's all in English, and it's amazing. I love this book. It's a great little history. But one of the ways that they organize their astrologic associations here is this. I don't know if you can see it. So it starts here. They start making their associations at the 6, which is something that gets talked about in tarot circles a lot too. But I love that they've done it with this deck. It's something I'm about to talk about when I talk about the 6 of Wands that I need to film already. But you know, if you know your numerology, 6 is the bridge. It's the heart. It's the center of the tree of life. It's that number where you communicate with above and below, where the two worlds come together. That's why in the Marielle Tarot, all the 6s are angels. You know, it's that rainbow bridge, that communication with above down to below and below to above. So it's very cool that they've done that. And they end, you know, so that puts the 5s all the way out at the end too, which I know I've talked about before. The 5s are like the furthest from spirit. And this is how we end up then creating our astrologic associations, and this is how they've numbered all the cards in the deck. The 6 of, I think he starts with hearts here too, actually, right? Yeah, it's the hearts. I think he goes in ordering. See, that says 1 right there. That's the numbering of the cards. The 1, the 6 of hearts is number 1, and then it goes through hearts, and then to diamonds, and then to clubs, and then to spades. And he says the reader or the medium represents spirit, and you see a little spirit in the center of the sky here, a symbol of the spirit. And then the numbers start swirling around. Oh, here's your 6 of hearts, and it just spirals out. This says it's a diagram of spiral forming 13 spheres of influence, beginning at the center with card number 1, the 6 of hearts, and continuing counterclockwise to card number 52, the 5 of spades. It's an amazing way to explore the Sibilla deck, and it's an amazing way in general just to explore our minor arcana. You know, same cards, same stuff. So this deck is a lot of fun. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's right up my alley. So if you like some of the things I like, you definitely will get a kick out of that deck. I think I got that one from Alita also. You'll never be disappointed with a Tavaglione deck. The amount of information and esoterica is just jam-packed into the pages of the little white book, and there's so much information on the cards. And this Sibylle deck is no exception. Oh my god, this video is going to be like 7 hours long. I'm shutting up. Moving on. I think I just have 1 or 2 more Sibylle decks to show you. Actually, let's do this one. This deck is called Il Vostro Destino. Your destiny, I think it translates as. I have a funny little birdie as my little charm there because this deck is just endlessly amusing to me. This is another, from what I can gather, modern Sibilla deck. It's also a 52 card deck. I don't think there's any consultant cards. Nope. No significators or consultant cards with this guy. The bags are like crazy. Isn't that nutty? It's actually really pretty. How many yellow backed cards do you have? They're a bit on the smaller side, like most of the other decks we went through. And where's the box for this guy? Ah, here it is. It's another Masenghini deck, just like, I think, what was my other one? Oh, my Vera Sibilla is made by them also. It's another one, unfortunately, like every friggin' thing is in Italian. I have no idea the history of this deck, or anything, and there's very little information about it online, but I fell in love with the artwork when I was checking it out. And shit, the more Sibillas the better, right? It's got really cool artwork. That is what this deck looks like. This card is called Victory, and it's your Ace of Clubs. Woohoo! Here's your Two of Clubs. Buena fede. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it means good faith. Good faith. So, you know, some of these card names are a little bit different, but this is definitely still a Sibylle deck. Felicita. This one is like, in the Vera Sibylle, this is like your Viaggio, your travel card. You sort of see a bit of that happening here. But it's happiness. Happiness. Felicita. Three of Clubs. Here's your sorpresa, or your surprise, your Four of Clubs. I love the way these cards are illustrated. You recognize a lot of the same things happening. You'll recognize a lot of the same keywords. Here's your Viaggio, your Six of Clubs, it is here. Your Voyage, your travel card. Here's your Fortuna, illustrated very differently. Oh, I found a treasure chest. How sweet and adorable are these cards? I have no idea if this is an older deck or like when the hell this was even created. It looks much more fresh and modern, but if anybody can lead me in a direction where I can get some more information on this deck, I would be really appreciative. But this deck reads really well, and it's interesting to compare to where things fall on the playing card spectrum. I find this deck to work with its associations. 10 of Clubs is, what do you call it? Like a cheerfulness, allegria. Dark-haired man or brunette man, brown-haired man for your Jack of Clubs. Amica for your Queen of Clubs is your friend here. And your protector, your protection for your King of Clubs, which just, it works, man. It works. I keep zooming off camera, sorry. Let's jump around a little. Beautiful. Actually, it's hard to see in the camera, I think, but that was a little image of, there she is. It looks like a spirit, like a water spirit or an air sprite or something like that, riding a snitch. I think she's riding Harry Potter's snitch. Or, I don't know, like a flying globe, maybe? Whatever. But it's really a sweet, sweet deck. I love this deck. Prudence, your 9 of spades, and your malady, your sickness. Nemico, your enemy, very similar to what we saw in the other decks. Instead of female enemy here, you have, she looks like a widow to me, but they titled it Mourning, which works. Money, the Ace of Diamonds. Again, we've seen that. So things bounce around, you know. This is the nature of some Sibilla stuff. Indecision. Generosity. Yeah, just like some of the other, you know, just like, oh, we're back to the start, but just like some of the other modern, or more modern Sibyllas, you had some name, title changes, you know, to different words. But you definitely, as you go through this deck, see a lot of familiar imagery, even if the title is a little bit different. Which, because it's an Italian, is like a whole nother thing to sort of get over, but it's doable. All right, this is the last Sibyl I wanted to show you guys. And I saved it for last for a reason. This is called, hang on. This is called, that's what the box looks like. It's called La Carte della Fortuna. And it also is another one that there's just like, I can't find any information on it. I just thought it was a really cool deck for a number of reasons. What you find in this deck is basically, it's basically the Biedermeier deck, which I actually have here. I'll show you guys that too. But there's some consultant cards in here, sorry. I think there's like 4 of them. This one comes with a bunch, yeah. Well, first of all, this is the backs. Interesting little arrangement going on back there. But this is you have 4 different consultant cards, and you have lots. I do like it's in English. Like, you do have your card title in English on here, and these cards are also numbered, and you have them in lots of different languages, which is cool. But the images are rather small because of all the big borders, but there's something really cool about them. So none of these images are the old, like, I think I want to say it's like mid or early 19th century, like 18, shit, when do they come from? Wait, let me think. Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know, between like 1800 and 1850, I want to say. None of these are the images that are from that date. These were all obviously done later. I don't know if they were done in the 40s, but every single image, can you see that, is like uber 1940s. And it mixes with these old card images. 32 of them, and the rest are in this style, like the consultant cards. It makes for a wild little deck. Look at her. 40s, right? Like, it's just super 1940s. Now, the way they did them, whoever this artist was, it still has a bit of that engraved look, and the coloring, you'll see it actually blends in pretty well with the rest of the deck. And it's really interesting to see those Austrian Biedermeier cards like back into a full 52 card deck, and then they just redid the rest. So this is an old one. You're going to see this exact image in the next deck that I show you. Why don't I pull it out at the same time, actually? Before I do that, this is what it looks like if you're going to buy it online. Don't make me try and say it. I can say Biedermeier, but it is a Piatnik deck, and it's an Austrian deck. Aufschlagkarten cards. Aufschlagkarten. 32 card deck. Backs look like this. No playing card associations whatsoever. It's just this. Oh, I didn't put this back in order either. Damn it. Here's your lover. You're going to see this card in there. I love how cute and sweet this deck is. The whole thing is aged. The borders aren't white. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. And a beautiful recreation of an old, gorgeous deck. Here's your marriage. This is the one, right? Yeah. This actually matches up the same way that, there we go, the same way that the Vera Sibylle does. And it has more in common with the Vera Sibylle than any other deck, really. However, it is not. This Sibylle, the Carte della Fortuna is not a Vera Sibylle. If it followed, even though the images are so different, if it followed that, I would say that it has the same, you know, some of the titles are the same as you find in Vera Sibylle and the correspondences, but a lot of them aren't. But see that? It is literally the same exact image. On a lot of them, the imagery is just reversed, like it's just flipped around. But but other than that, it's the same thing. It's differently colored, you'll find too, as you can see right there, actually. Wow, it really jumps out at me now. His pants are different color, the background, it's colored completely different. But it's the same thing. Real quick, let me finish going through the Biedermeier, and then we'll hop back to that one. So, you know, they don't really market this as a Sibilla at all, but I would certainly call, I'd have no problem calling this deck a Sibylle either. Ecclesiastic, your enemy, even though it's not associated with the Jack. I think it is the Jack of Spades in here. Malady, your sickness card. And it's got all this classic. You can see how your thief card, your Speranza, your hope card with your anchor. You can see how this became joy card. How this became and evolved into our Sibilla decks now. Sadness and misfortune or tragedy card, the fire. That was all the same classic elements. It is a really cool little deck to have. Okay, so that is what you find in here, also interspersed with weird 1940s imagery. Here's another old one, that's your journey card, and there's a more modern. I'm gonna call them the 1940s cards, and this is your pride card, your vanity, where you saw the peacock in some of the old ones. Your haughtiness card, that was. And here is your friends. That's a new one. Here's an old one. We just saw that in the other deck. Your joy card. I title this one Profit, which is interesting because you could just as well call that money, right? And that's the name of the card in the Vera Sibylle decks. Fortune here is actually at your 7 of clubs, where in the Vera you would find your great consolation card. Here it is your fortune card. It's really luck, a good luck card, but your Fortuna. Your Fortuna card is the 5 of clubs in the Vera Sibylle. It's just different. It just is. But check it out. Yeah, like they fit together pretty well. I mean, you know what you're looking at. You're gonna spot the differences really quickly. Obviously, the Biedermeier deck, this has like, you know, it kind of jumps around from time periods. I feel like some of it is like really old looking costumes, and some of it's, you know, a bit more modern, but it certainly doesn't get into the 40s because that hadn't happened yet. So I think it's strange that all the new cards that they added stick to that kind of 1940s look. But whatever, it does. I think this deck is really cool. And it's done smart too. I like the court cards for the inserts are actually really pretty too. They're like this red to them. Queen of Spades, Queen of Clubs, your maid. Your physician, your doctor card is an actual doctor taking care of you. Oh, Ace of Hearts here is actually called party here too, instead of like conversation, but party is of course the Grand Ettella keyword, title also. Here's your house card, your visit at the 3 of Hearts, and your love at the 4 of Hearts. Jump around a bit. Oh, there's your death card, 5 of Spades. And here you have your size, again, back at the 6 of Spades. Your longing. Your calamity, it's called here. Your misfortune or your tragedy card, which again is the same. That's one of the older cards. Here's another one of the old cards, jealousy. And there's a modern one. This is your prison card. There's an older one, the officer uniform, and your enemy at the Jack of Spades, and your rival, they call it, at the Queen of Spades. Dun dun dun! Okay, I'm stopping. That is a little taste of that deck. If you guys want to see like all these cards, just leave me a message down below or something, and I'll add it to the list of decks to go through sooner rather than later. We'll leave that guy there. Alright, so that'll about do it for our Sibilla section of this video. I might split this video into a couple videos, huh?